All
And
right.
we're gonna go live. Okay. You guys ready to talk about some Wonder Woman?
Yes.
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm gonna start recording in five, four, three, two, one, and boom. All right, so we're recording. So Ian and Daniel,
Yes.
we're gonna talk
Hello.
about Wonder Woman today. So
Yep.
we watched the first movie from 2017. What did you guys think about the first Wonder Woman movie?
I mean, this is like my third time watching the movie.
hmm
I saw it in theaters, and I've done two rewatches hence, and it's still good.
Yeah, I'm actually in the same boat. This was my third watch of it. There's parts of it that I've always liked it. I think I've always felt originally that like the ending was maybe one of the weaker parts of it, but this rewatch of it, like I felt a lot better about it. I don't know. I definitely like that final little fight a little bit better. I don't know. It still feels maybe it could be out of place, but overall, still just thoroughly enjoyable. The second act still gets me every time.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the second act is the strongest and the third one is the weakest in the movie. And I watched it one fewer time than you guys. I watched it two times. I watched it in the theaters, and this was my first rewatch. But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was a cool movie. So I agree with you guys. I think it's cool. Um, I think overall, I think I would say I don't want to be like a party pooper, but I would say it's a little bit overrated. Especially watching it a second time. I think I did like it a little bit more when I watched it in theaters, and but that's kind of normal, because when you watch a movie in theaters, first of all, you're watching it for the first time, you know, which is always well, it tends to be better, and also you're watching it on a big screen, uh, which by the way, I don't know if we're ever gonna have that experience again, or at least anytime soon. The second one just came out, and no one's gonna watch it in the theaters probably, or very few people.
I'm
But
likely not going to go to a theater again.
yeah, so
So
actually, I'm excited. I'm excited to watch that with you guys pretty soon, so we can do the podcast as well. But let's talk about the first one. Yeah, I agree. I think the third act, yeah, I don't think it's as strong. I think the beginning is really good, and I think the second act is really where the movie takes off and is the best. Is at its best.
well, and I think, like I said, I like that third act a lot better now on this rewatch. What what gets me about it is that I think it was definitely set up to be a little bit different. And recent interviews have kind of shown that Warner Brothers really wanted that big CGI fight there at the end, where the fight with Ludendorff, I think, was set up to be sort of like, oh, you can't just defeat and kill one guy and save the day. And like that was, I feel like that was set up to be a contrast to what her final conflict with Ares was supposed to be originally for Patty Jenkins. And maybe they ended up having just a second one-on-one fight anyway, with a lot
Yeah.
of big flying destruction and stuff. But there were, I like I said, I didn't dislike it as much as I did before. And overall, I actually really love this movie for everything that it managed to achieve and really get a lot of things across, from the comics to film. Um, made Steve Trevor who is a very problematic character in the comics, actually very likable. Really credit Chris Pine and transforming that character.
Why is he problematic? What do you mean by that?
Well,
And by the way, I don't know if it's different for you guys. I think from what you just said, I think that's true, Daniel, for you. But I came into this movie. Well, obviously, this was not the first time. This was a rewatch for me. But 2017, I'm a big fan of Batman and Superman. But that's pretty much it in terms of DC Comics for me. I mean, I watch a little bit of. I mean, I like Flash. I like Aquaman, but that's about it. I had no real knowledge of Wonder Woman before the movie, so for me, this is basically Wonder Woman. You know, it might be different for you. It seems that you have some knowledge of the comics. So is it
comics and the Linda Carter show? The Linda Carter show was probably my first.
I also haven't watched that. So how does the movie compare to those other things?
Well, the movie is its own entity, really. There's multiple comic interpretations of her. There's a version of her that cuts a villain's head off at one point in the comics. This is definitely not the version of her we got, but I really love this interpretation of her. It feels it really gets to the heart of Professor Marsden's original creation of her. But what really gets Professor Marsden was the original. He came up with the original. He's the one who came up with Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and I watched this on HBO. They also have a movie. I don't know if you watched it. It's about the creation of Wonder Woman, and it's something like Professor Marsden's Wonder Woman or something like that. And I don't know if you've seen that movie, but that could be interesting to watch.
I haven't watched it yet. It's on my list to do so, just because the origin of her is really interesting. But
yeah,
I will leave like this comment at that. You know, you guys talk a little bit more, but it is to me one of the greatest successes. It's weird for me to talk about a movie about Wonder Woman and talk so much about Steve Trevor, but he sucks as a character in the comics so much in so many interpretations, and the fact that
he suck? What's bad about him? I kind of like him in the movie. That's why I'm asking.
Well, I mean, for so many years, he was always written as like this guy who kept doing things for her, like, you know, not necessarily interfering with her missions and stuff, but because he was basically played off as like this guy with a bit of a hero complex who tried to step in and be the man for his woman when really he just ended up getting himself into trouble all the time, and then she needed to rescue him. So instead of a damsel in distress, he was just this guy who kept causing headache for her, really. And
so that's his, you know, in the comics, that's what defines his character.
There's been so many versions of him that are like that. The animated series did an okay job with him in the brief when he was briefly in the series. Although still like condescending. I don't call it it's to me condescending, but like you'd always refer to her as Angel. You know, this pet name he had for her because she was this godlike, you know, angelic figure to him.
Right.
And so what the movie does so well, it humanizes their relationship so much better, and really like shows how like he really respects her and respects what she stands for. And
I think they have a good chemistry, right? I mean, I thought they had a good chemistry. And it's funny, you know. I think that works well in the movie. That's one of the cool things about the movie, that their relationship is kind of, you know, there's lots of comedy there, but at the same time, you kind of buy it that they like each other. You know, there's actually like a sexual tension or, you know, romantic tension, but at the same time, there's lots of comedy. So it's a good balance.
Right. But yeah, I'll leave my initial comments at that, and we can go to other takeaways from you guys.
I would say it's the beginning of the movies. I thought that was also one of my favorite parts. I think it's and again, as someone who hasn't really read any previous material or watched anything before, I think this movie does a very good job at introducing the character and letting you know who Wonder Woman is, and it even like sets the movie well within the general universe, right, that they're building, because there is a bit of a connection between this movie and the other movies, especially Batman versus Superman. I think that was the movie where she had appeared previously, and that intro scene I think sets it up pretty well. That she looks at that picture, World War One picture, and then that's the entrance to our entry to the world, and then they tell her story from the beginning. Actually, the first scene, I think she's like 5 years old or something like that. She's a little girl, and they introduce us to this world, and I thought it was pretty cool, and that's other than that No Man's Land scene, which is a standout.
Yeah.
I think that was my favorite part of the movie, was just being introduced to this world of the Amazons, and it's a beautiful, gorgeous world with a bunch of gorgeous Amazons doing really cool things, so I think that was a pretty good setup for the story. So yeah, go ahead.
I mean, as far as the world building is concerned, I would say this movie stands out in stark contrast to the rest of the movies that came out in this series, because it was kind of obvious that Warner Brothers was trying to set up for the Justice League movie, which I think happened.
Yeah, it did happen. Yeah.
Right.
It was so the chronology was, you had Man of Steel 2013, and then Batman versus Superman 2016, and Suicide Squad in 2016, but that was kind of a sideshow.
Right.
And then you had Wonder Woman and Justice League. They both came out in 2017. I think Wonder Woman maybe came out a little bit earlier than Justice League, but so yeah, that was kind of the chronology of things.
I would say that Wonder Woman is far and away the best movie of the series, to the point that some of the others are legitimately bad movies, right? Like Suicide Squad is not good.
Well, I actually like Suicide Squad, but most people
that's too bad,
like
man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for you.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I can live with it. I mean, I enjoyed it. I think Suicide Squad is one of the best.
Do a whole podcast on it, but there was literally a moment within that movie I remember watching where it's like, wow, they edited this movie so bad. They're including a flashback to an earlier scene that wasn't in the cut of this movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I've only watched it once, so I don't really know what scene you're referring to. I remember really liking it in the theater, unlike most people. But I mean, this movie for sure was considered one of the best when it came out, and it was in stark contrast to Justice League, which came out the same year, and people hated it with reason. So that's actually it's very interesting that this movie, I would say honestly, this movie kind of saved the whole DC universe, extended the movie universe.
I guess I wouldn't say it saved it. I would say it was definitely the best offering, but I feel like
no, I mean, when I say saved, I think I mean actually saved in terms of they kept making movies after that, because I don't know if they hadn't had this movie, I honestly don't think they would have continued making movies.
I mean, I want to throw it out there. This movie, though, has the least connection in terms of a connected universe, and I think that benefits it. I think DC almost benefits from not trying to do a connected universe so much. Because,
and this movie, the success of this movie completely changed their strategy. Thank God it changed their strategy, because they were using that strategy of, okay, let's just put let's go all in a shared universe. Let's just try to do the Marvel thing. We're going to do shared universe in all the movies that were being released, or almost all the movies. Batman versus Superman and Justice League, Suicide Squad, they were all kind of like, group movies. And then Wonder Woman came out, and all those movies kind of bombed. And Wonder Woman was the one that was really successful and that people loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, well, for one thing, shared universes are creatively constricting.
Yeah.
You know,
Don't
you
do
might
shared
still,
universe.
you might still get some bombs within just doing standalone stuff, but I think I would much rather going forward that like they don't focus much. I mean, Shazam is a very effective movie as a standalone without really needing to deal with. I mean, the connected stuff they have in there is mostly played off for comic relief.
Yeah, I agree. From a storytelling perspective, I mean, it's so much easier and it tends to be so much better to tell a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end,
Right.
that stands on its own than, all these movies that basically they're just trying to set up sequels and that you have to watch a movie in a completely different series in order to understand this movie. I mean, it's kind of a mess.
Yeah. And so,
I think the Marvel movies work really well because at first it was only 4 movies and basically they did a team up movie, right? Which DC didn't even do properly. But that kind of works, and people had never seen that in movies before. It was a staple of comics, but people had never seen, 4 movies leading up to one. But at the same time, if you look back at all those Marvel movies, they were all standalone stories because they're all the origin stories of those heroes, leading up to Avengers, which was also kind of a origin story for the Avengers. After that, I think creatively doing a shared universe has only really hurt those characters for the most part because none of those movies really feel complete anymore.
Right.
They feel like TV show episodes.
I almost will forgive a really bad standalone DC movie as long as somebody's trying to do something interesting. Because
are you going to forgive Suicide Squad?
Nope.
No, because that one was clearly Warner Brothers re-editing and recutting and not that was not allowing a director to do their thing. We'll see if they allow James Gunn to do more
his version.
Yeah.
We gotta do an episode on that because I actually really like that movie. I don't know why people didn't like it, but I mean, it was obviously it wasn't a great movie.
It's a nonsensical movie. Like it
is a nonsensical movie. I agree with that.
There's only one real good scene, and that's when.
I would disagree with that.
Though the one good scene is they're at the bar, and then when everyone says to you all can leave, and then Captain Boomerang just leaves.
What about the Margot Robbie scene?
She's got a couple of good stuff, but it's tainted by the having the Jared Leto Joker in there. He's so bad.
I think the Jared Leto Joker is like the thing that really ruined it for me because he was hyped up so much. And in addition to Jared Leto being just like a shit scumbag person,
right?
He only got 14 minutes of airtime in the movie. And it was just
I actually didn't mind him.
I think the Joker is a really big role to fill in cinema, classically. I think Heath Ledger really set the bar. Mark Hamill has left big shoes to fill.
Jared Leto is really good, though. I mean, he's a very good actor.
I don't know about that.
The problem is
he's an Oscar winner. I think he win the Oscar for Best Actor.
Jared Leto,
he's a top tier actor, man.
I think he was nominated for Dallas Buyers Club, but I thought that was.
Didn't he win that year?
I thought that was Matthew McConaughey who won for that.
I actually don't know Jared Leto from anything other than Suicide
one of them
Squad.
won it. I think you're right. I think it was Matthew McConaughey.
I mean, you might be right. Maybe Leto won that as well.
He just looks like I'm Googling him right now, and he just looks like a scuffed Russell Brand.
No, but I mean, I do think he's a very good actor.
I just looked it up. They both won.
Oh, he was in Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, I mean,
he was the
top
guy.
Actor, man.
He was one.
Was he the heroin addict?
Yeah.
But okay, no spoilers. Yeah, he was the heroin addict, right?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, everyone knows. Yeah.
No, man, the movie's sad. I don't want to spoil that for somebody else.
Man, that movie is probably
That-
the worst, the movie that made me feel the worst in my life.
It's hard to
that
watch, and
movie
I had a
was-
teacher at school show it to us.
What?
Really?
Yes.
That movie.
That's
Yes.
like,
That's child abuse, man. That's crazy.
oh
That they
no,
were-
Jared Leto got greenlit for a 2022 Batman movie.
No, I
I
think
don't
it
know
got
if it's
canceled.
gonna. I don't know if it's gonna go.
No, it got canceled.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna go.
Isn't this the Jake Gyllenhaal or the Twilight Batman?
They had it for a while, but they canceled it. Now they're going with the Batman. It's with Robert Pattinson, I think.
Yeah, Twilight guy.
Yeah, and then they ended up doing the Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, which obviously was a big.
Oh
success.
yeah, I forgot about that. I haven't even watched that movie.
And that one is its own separate universe. You see, that's another
Right.
good thing that DC has from its comics, that you can pull off. That DC has always done the multiverse, and so it's like you don't need to work on this big shared universe. You can just have different timelines. And guess what? Some people will be fans of certain ways that they're doing it. Some people are fans of everything else. That's why this Wonder Woman, like, I'm okay with it if they never really interconnect this version of it with anything else.
Yeah, I think it's okay to do a shared thing every once in a while, but I think it's definitely more enjoyable, and I think that's the way DC is going now. I mean, it's definitely more enjoyable when you focus on that character.
Yeah, and again, hopefully they continue to allow directors to not try to make every DC movie like the Christopher Nolan Batman movies.
Yeah, I think as
They
far
were
as like
obsessed with that.
Also, because you're going to
maintaining-
fail, right? I mean, there's no way you're going to succeed when you try to do that.
Well, it only works with Batman. You can't have everybody be grimdark.
And
Right.
and it only works for Christopher Nolan because he's on a league of his own. For a number of reasons, it's not going to work.
I think they need to. I think Warner Brothers needs to really set their expectations about what they want to achieve from a movie. So for Marvel to maintain their cinematic universe, it makes a lot of sense because it continues to cascade for the next movie and the next movie. But it also sets up for merchandise sales, action figures, TV shows, franchise rights, like just fucking everything. And that's the benefit to having like a huge multiverse that is engaging across multiple movies for a consumer. It's exciting and like you feel rewarded as you as your knowledge translates from one thing to the next. And that's really not the case with DC movies. I feel like Warner Brothers really needs to not shoot for that, because I don't think that's their intention to build a brand that way.
Well, and I
It's-
feel like.
it's-
Sorry, go ahead, Bruno.
No, go ahead, man. It's fine.
I was gonna say Warner Brothers had something to that effect with their animated universe.
Oh, totally.
The Justice League TV series, the culmination of like a great expanded animated universe, is a amazing accomplishment. And it always seems weird to me that they abandoned the tone of that for their movies purely just because of how successful the Dark Knight movies were. And I'm reminded that I was while watching this Wonder Woman movie, I'm reminded of what is one of my favorite episodes of the series, where Batman ends up saving the day by just sitting next, because the villain at that moment was Ace, this girl who had these reality altering powers, but who was acting out because she was on the verge of dying. And Batman's way of saving the day is he sat down and he sits with her, so she's not lonely. Because the whole point of DC heroes is they're gods. Batman notwithstanding, they are essentially godlike figures on Earth, but their stories are compelling because they don't necessarily have to fight and win the day against the villains. Like a lot of their best storylines are like that, and Wonder Woman is one of those who exemplifies that best, in that she is often the one who tries to get to the heart of what they deal with.
Yeah, and in this case, at least in this version of Wonder Woman, like I said, I don't have a lot of background information about the character. This is basically the version that I think of as Wonder Woman now, but they actually made her a goddess. I don't know if she's always a goddess in every version, but
Sometimes
she's
and
actually
sometimes no.
okay.
Sometimes
So
she's
yeah,
a
that's kind of what
demigod,
I thought.
sometimes she's not. It just depends on the interpretation. Sometimes she is literally sculpted from clay and brought to life by Zeus. It's what I've enjoyed how they do what they do in sometimes these movies is they include multiple origins at once just to pay homage to that.
Yeah, and she did. There's a really funny scene when she says, you know, that she was sculpted by in clay by Zeus, and I don't remember exactly, but
Yeah,
it's actually a
Hippolyta.
really funny scene. And then the guy says, "Oh, okay, so in my world, people babies are made in a different way, you know." So that's a pretty funny scene.
Yeah, that's a great scene actually. Their whole scene in the boat a
Oh yeah, that's
is
so
a great
funny.
two-person play. Like the everything about that
Yeah,
so well.
like she's like, oh, so you need to marry me first to sleep with me, and he's like, no, 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 I'll sleep with you if you want me to. I'll sleep with you, but she doesn't really know what she's asking him.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's funny, and the whole thing that he's average, and she keeps calling him average, and he's like, no, actually, I'm a little bit of above average. No, it's really funny.
Um, a framing and filming note in the whole movie is that any like Lauren, my girlfriend pointed out this to me and something that I wouldn't easily notice, but you know, and others have pointed out to me as well, like on watching it, is that um, there's no God, what's the name of it? It's the kind of shot. It's the shot. Like there's no shot that like rises up from her below her legs to her butt. There's no shot that's like very much about exposing her feminine figure during
Yeah, I
all
mean,
these
there's no
things.
male gaze in this movie.
Yeah, you're right. There's no male gaze shot
Right.
in this movie at all, and that for a lot of women watching that, I mean, it's such a new experience for that.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's what like made this movie do so well is that it wasn't shot the way a traditional superhero movie was, and it wasn't shot in the way you would expect something like this coming out of Hollywood to be done.
Yeah,
Right, like it was very as sexy as Bruno likes to say this movie is, and it is. I think it's sexy for the right reasons, right? It shows a human Wonder Woman.
yeah,
Like Diana is like seen as a very empathetic person, right? Like when she runs to that baby in like the streets of London,
yeah.
like that's what it's like a very typical thing for like a woman to do, and she's not like made to be like a sex object. I think that
Well,
half second just gives her tons of humanity. I think you see it in on the Amazon island. There are all of these warriors and Amazons with different body types, and they're Amazons of different colors, and like there is representation that matters, and I think that's what is one of the big things to make the movie a large success. Like my girlfriend was also very excited to watch this movie the first time we watched it, and I think that lends itself to a lot of its accessibility.
Yeah, I think this is that's kind of like the main. Well, it's not why I like the movie personally. I think this is the movie worked for two reasons essentially. Guys liked it because it's a fun adventure. So it's when I watched it for the first time and watching it this time, it's kind of a silly movie. I mean, it's a superhero movie. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it is a fun adventure. We've been watching the Indiana Jones movies. I kind of feel that and this is a good thing. It's kind of an adventure movie, just like what they did with Aquaman. And I think it's a good idea to make some of these movies like more like an adventure movie, where you go to lots of different locations, different worlds. I think it just
Oh, thanks.
yeah
Out.
it definitely makes them fun to watch. And then the second reason why it worked is this was a Black Panther movie for women, right? I mean, it was directed by a woman. The main character is a woman, and it was done. It's kind of a feminist movie. which I think it's in line with the character. I'm not really sure. Like I think you know more about that than I do, Daniel. But I think
She's more in line of in terms of global politics. Um, like in the comics, she's like the ambassador to the world, and she's supposed to be more in that aspect, and she's supposed to represent really the world.
the world. Okay.
And I feel like they use that aspect in this movie a lot. In that, you mentioned Aquaman. I would say that like what's successful is leaning into the elements to which these characters can come from. Aquaman has actually a lot of horror elements because under the sea is kind of scary considering all the different types of creatures.
Yeah, they added a little bit of a horror element to it,
right,
but it was very similar to Wonder Woman though. You have this adventure, you have this world that you get introduced to, you have the origin story. A lot of the things that made Aquaman good, you can kind of see them in Wonder Woman.
Whereas like I feel Wonder Woman leans heavily into the idea of love and empathy, which is something that, and you know, trying to cherish your people, cherish everyone, which is a central Wonder Woman theme, and that I feel that's what they leaned in heavily here. Yeah, the adventure stuff is a common current, but I feel like what makes DC successful is when they lean into thematic elements that their characters really align with. You know, again, the horror elements when it comes to underwater stuff and environmentalism is something they will probably address later with Aquaman movies. And then with Wonder Woman, it's very much the humanist elements that come through. War is a really big element to Wonder Woman's character, just because of like that human element. So it's the humanist elements that they lean into with her, and being the representation of that is.
Yeah, I think I definitely see a lot of that now that you mention it. Like after they liberate that town, and they're all dancing. There's a lot of curiosity from Diana where she's asking, like, well, what do you do when you're not at war?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, and Steve Trevor explains, like mostly this, people like dance and drink and fall in love and celebrate and party.
Yeah. And even in the end, when he explains to her, like, we're all bad, but we're all good too. Like that defining, like she had such a black and white, not a great split there, but such like a very strict view of between good and evil. And what was truly something for her to have to cherish is that she is to fight for the parts within everybody that are good. And and Steve and his merry band, they were all people that were flawed, very flawed, as she pointed out, like a murderer, a liar, a cheat, like all of these people. But these are people who inherently were fighting for a greater good because of the good elements within her. And so while she went to go fight Ares, as he said, like, you can save the world, we can save the day, they went to do just that. And so that, again, this is why the rewatch, actually, that final act hits me stronger, as I see that a little bit better now. As much as maybe we didn't need that big CGI fight, the whole act together to me is still pretty good. And I really appreciate that they lean so heavily into that humanist element that Wonder Woman represents. And I hope for further DC movies, they lean into that with the other characters and rediscover what Superman really is about, and not what we've been getting for a couple of movies. And that they do the Flash well. Hopefully they can do him well.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I did enjoy Man of Steel, but after that, their depiction of Superman has just not been on point. But yeah, I really like that aspect that you're pointing out, the humanist aspect. Yeah, I think that was definitely another reason why people can relate to the movie and why it's so cool. But like I was saying, I think this is like a Black Panther kind of movie. It's a movie that people feel represented. In this case, women really felt represented and in the feminist kind of like feminist attitudes, really enjoyed the movie, and it was a big part of why it was successful, just like Black Panther for the Black community, and Captain Marvel. So I mean, there's lots of reasons why the movie was successful.
So I guess I wouldn't just like instantly chalk it up
Yeah.
as like, well, this movie features a minority, so it's going to be successful and they're going to love it.
Well, it's part of it. It's part of it. I mean, it's not like I said, it's also a cool movie. That's another part of it. You have that humanist element. But I mean, I think that's definitely part of it.
Well, I mean, I don't think that this should always be used as like a referendum on that, though. I think what Ian, I'll let you actually speak for that.
Well, I guess what I'm more getting at, Bruno, is that I wouldn't instantly give a movie a win, just for representing people of color, representing women. It's about how they do it. So like we were talking about the male gaze earlier, right? Like this movie is exciting in that regard because it was filmed and directed by women, and it's it breaks the mold in that regard. So this could be a Flash movie, and if it did a lot of the similar things that Wonder Woman does well, I think it would still resonate for those reasons.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. But like the reason why I think women like it so much, especially women that care about, like feminist things, and that want to see themselves represented in movies, and that complain that they're not getting represented. Obviously, I think that was definitely one reason why it's why we all have girlfriends and wives that watch the movie and like the movie and get really excited because they're seeing like basically Wonder Woman spends the whole movie kicking all the men's butts, and that's not something you see very often in movies. I mean, I get it, right?
Right.
It's what they saw in Black Panther, the Black community, or other communities that see themselves represented for the first time, or one of the first time. I mean, it's normal, right?
I mean, I guess I wouldn't say it's the fact that they're seeing representation. It's that they're seeing representation in a fundamentally different light.
Yeah, and it's allowed to be what it can be. It's like we talked about the no male gaze shot. It's basically like if this movie was made 10, 15 years ago, you would have expected them to have scenes included that like were very sort of exploitive of Gal Gadot's figure, that were very like having her just going around, and you might have even like that the whole dress up scene would have probably played up
would have been way sexier.
Yeah, it would have like instead you had a Christopher Reeve Superman moment where she shows up and they put glasses on her and they had like a great, it was such like it literally looked like him, like with the coat and everything. It's basically an homage to the first Superman movie. Like,
yeah, it is. That's a cool scene.
And so like instead, you're allowed to have a nice, smart scene without having to, play off of her body or the fact that it's a woman's body. Like,
well, if you had a male director, if you had a male director, it would probably be a lot sexier. I mean,
well, if you had
right, and I guess that's kind of our
like,
but it wasn't done in that way.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that's kind of our point is that like, I think women enjoy seeing a movie where it's not just another woman being objectified.
Yeah.
And I think Dan makes a really good point with the wardrobe scene. Right. Like it's all about like all of her complaints are, oh, I can't fight in this. I'm not going to be powerful enough in this. And like even when they do, like put Gal Gadot front and center because she is absolutely stunning. They put her front and center for her actual beauty. Like when they put the glasses on her, Steve Trevor's secretary is like, okay, well now it's not like she's the most beautiful woman you've ever seen, right? Like they make nudges at it and they don't hide her, behind a filter.
Well,
right? Like she's being celebrated in such a way that like, feels nice. They're not like, damn, look at her tits.
I think they reached a compromise. You know, they kind of compromise. Okay, we are going to use an actress that's, you know, absolutely gorgeous, but we're not gonna make her like super sexy. We're just gonna make her, you know, look good, but that's not gonna be our focus. Because obviously the studio, I'm guessing they wouldn't go with a Wonder Woman that wasn't appealing. But they, you know, they reached a compromise. And look, it works great because, you know, she's still very beautiful and very, actually she looks great as a Wonder Woman because actually the action scenes, they you can see she's actually very good in the action scenes. She's very believable, and I don't know if it's her or if it's a double, but they made it look good at least.
She's a she's military trained, so she's
right. Yeah, she was in the military.
Yeah.
She's kind of like Gina Carano, but not to that extent. I mean, lower level, but you can see that she has some action chops as well.
But yeah, it's like, I think like what it comes down to is that, you know, I think movies made in the past that were supposed to star women were always supposed to include scenes that are to appeal to a young or even old male audience, to get them attracted with those sexy scenes and what. And it's like, you don't need to make those scenes in a Wonder Woman movie. Like, you know, you don't need to have scenes with her fawning over a guy with another girl where they talk about it. Like, you know, these kind of scenes are useless. They don't give you anything more interesting when you could be filling the movie out with more interesting stuff. And so, you know, there's literally not a scene where she has to discuss she has scenes with Etta Candy, you know, that's the assistant, and all the other women that are not about discussing relationships with a guy. Like, it's the fact the whole movie passes the freaking Bechdel test. Like, you know, it's the fact that you can prove that you don't need any of that stuff. You don't need relationship drama, you know, in order to push a women-led movie along. Like,
I think there's a lot more of that in the second movie. That's what I heard, but we'll find out soon enough.
Well, I watched it. We'll get to
it.
it.
You watched it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I'll watch it again. I've been wanting to actually do a quick rewatch of it.
I haven't watched it yet, so
yeah, we'll do the podcast. Yeah,
I assume we're doing 1984 next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1984.
It'll be an interesting discussion. I'll give you guys that.
It's the year the Apple computer came out.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that we talked about this before, then the score is really good in this movie.
Well,
not amazing,
I feel like
but it's pretty good.
I feel like it's an accidental one too, because like with the casting of Gal Gadot, these are all things that were made for a Zack Snyder movie that then that turned out to be great. Like her theme, which is, you know, a pounding but exotic guitar riff, is a great sort of like mix of, you know, because it's got that whole exotic Amazon, you know, background, but within the environment, and so it's like, it's such a good contrast and high octane stuff that it's interesting though, we don't really get that theme until the No Man's Land scene.
It feels really out of place, you know. It feels really out of place. Like, did they get this wrong? You know, it's a little bit awkward, but at the same time, it's pretty cool. You know,
yeah, that's the theme that they gave her in that Batman v Superman movie, and so like, you know, they kind of had to continue with it, but like,
oh, it came out in, yeah, you're right. It came out in Batman versus Superman, and it was kind of a weird choice then, yeah. But at this point, you know, that's the new Wonder Woman like action song.
I like it so much for her as a, you know, exotic Amazonian theme. I love that it's a guitar riff too.
Yeah, it's like a heavy metal, rock and roll, hard rock. Let's kick some butt, you know.
Yeah, that scene one thing I will say, and I'll be curious when you guys do watch 1984. The effects in this movie feel better, which is weird to me, given that 1984 comes out later.
You know, I actually heard that complaint.
That's weird because 1984 has a bigger budget, almost
Yeah.
twice as big.
So I don't know how that happened, but we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, I've
I'm just
heard,
giving.
Maybe someone needs to get fired.
I've heard that complaint, but I will absolutely go into 1984 with a positive and open mindset and
Yeah.
decide for myself.
Maybe they wanted to look like 1984.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll be curious when we get to that, and I'll be interested in your guys' thoughts. I think there will be a lot of discussion on Wonder Woman 1984 as well. Other than the fact that they obviously named it 1984 so that the abbreviation wouldn't be WW2.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to talk to you about that I wanted to talk to you guys about is it's kind of weird that I didn't think about it the first time that I watched the movie, but the second time I kept thinking about how this movie's like really similar to Captain America.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they plagiarized it, but I don't know if that was an inspiration for them, but it looks so. It ends up being very similar to the original Captain America movie, and it's basically just swapped. Like the gender, basically the woman becomes the man, and the man becomes the woman. So instead of
Yeah, I mean they definitely have World War II themed backdrops.
well,
sure.
Captain America's World War II, and in this movie they have World War One.
Well,
isn't this movie World War II?
No,
World War One.
World War One, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's essentially the same. It's a war movie. It's an origin story for the superhero war movie. She even has a shield, and she uses it a lot in this movie.
Well, I mean,
So she looks like Captain America.
Part of that is that some of their comic book history is similar. It's like Wonder Woman has a lot of comic storylines that take her through World War One. Captain America was very clearly like his whole origin comes about fighting Nazis.
Yeah, Captain America, that's his origin story. But is Wonder Woman connected to World War One in particular?
There's a lot of it. I mean, her character I think is older. I think in general, but like it's part of it is just I think sometimes you have similar source material.
Yeah.
And I guess it also comes from like the genesis of those superheroes, right? Like Superman was created during the Depression, I want to say, and he was written by two guys who, like really thought that the world needed to see a superhero. And the same thing is true with Captain America, right? Stan Lee coined him in kind of like a war effort.
Yeah, they both characters started in 1941. I just looked it up.
Yeah, Captain America's earlier than Stan Lee.
Cap and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, they both started in 1941. Wonder Woman's original outfit had the stars and stripes on it too.
Oh, yeah, so she is sort of a Captain America, but a woman.
I mean, origin-wise, like somewhat. I would argue Cap was kind of on his own in terms of analogs.
I never thought about them as very similar, but watching this movie was kind of impossible because as soon as I thought, well, this reminds me of Captain America, and then and this was early on in the movie, and they are really similar.
Well, I mean, yeah, she had a stars and stripes leotard when she first came out. So I mean,
okay.
So that was.
But anyways, it's just a curiosity. I mean, this is still it doesn't feel like too repetitive, but it is kind of very similar to the original Captain America movie.
I mean, this origin very much does play out a lot like the Captain America First Avenger movie.
Yeah.
In numerous ways in terms of taking place during a war, but I think the Amazonian aspect of it plays close to actually like what Thor was almost. You have a demigod or god.
Yeah, Aquaman as well. As well. Similar. And I like that. I really like that aspect of building. This character has his or her own world, and it's really interesting to explore that world. I think that's one of the best parts
In
of
the
it.
comics, there's a very interesting interplay between Atlantis and Themyscira as well, which
Oh, really?
something to look forward to. If they do, the supposed plan for the Flash movie could end up involving both Aquaman and Wonder Woman as well. I don't know if I'm happy they're doing that way. If you're going to introduce the Flash in one of his pivotal storylines in Flashpoint, but
I feel like they
see.
will, just because they get that sweet synergy.
But I don't want the Flash movie to be that. I don't want the first Flash movie to be Flashpoint. Though.
Yeah, no, I really think it should be an origin story as well. I mean, it makes so much more sense.
Well, the Flash is going to have a hard time because they have a really good TV show that's done the Flash pretty well. So
I think they're also going to work off of the TV show, and I know almost nothing about the Flash, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But the surface material or the materials there, I don't see them not taking the bait and doing it.
Yeah, well, this will be interesting because the Flash is arguably, I would say, my favorite comic series.
It's kind of risky if you introduce a character and you don't do an origin story. I mean, even if you look at past movies, the ones that have been successful and the ones that haven't been, usually the origin story that's the successful movie.
I tend to agree with you on that, mostly because of how many goddamn times I've had to watch Batman's origin story.
Yeah.
Like, how many times do we need to watch the Waynes get murdered before
Batman
everyone in society
silly.
just gets it?
And it's so
Batman
silly because Batman has so
now.
many stories that you can do that aren't his origin. You know, it's like,
I mean, he's got tons. You could I think the Batman comic universe is one I actually know of, for one. But there are so many great. There's just so many great characters, so many great actual comic book arcs that would adapt well into a movie. We don't need to start every single Batman material with even a flashback to the Waynes. I don't want to see it ever again. I don't want to see another movie do it.
Well, I think Batman now gets a pass because we've had so many Batman movies, but the Flash is not a very well-known character.
Oh no, I would agree with you that the Flash needs an introduction.
Yeah, I just hope that
cinematic
it's not,
context.
I just hope it's not in the context of also needing to do a big tentpole movie with Aquaman and Wonder Woman in it too. As much as
I think that would spoil it. Yeah.
As much as I like both characters, and we're talking Wonder Woman now here, and it'd be amazing to see her in another movie again so soon. I hope that that's not what we end up having, because I think the Flash is the next one slated to come after Suicide Squad, or maybe it's the Batman.
I think you're right. Yeah, it's the Suicide Squad, and then after that, the Flash.
Are they going to do a Hawkeye or a Hawk Girl or Cyborg movie at all?
Cyborg, I think, is still kind of in the works, but I think there's issues between Warner Brothers and Ray Fisher at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen at all, ever.
I think there's more of a chance for a Green Arrow and Black Canary movie.
Maybe, but look, I'm looking at the ones that are scheduled right now. The Suicide Squad this year, the Flash next year, the Aquaman sequel that's going to come out, the Shazam sequel as well, Black Adam, which is a spin-off of Shazam with
that actually should be really cool. I'm really excited for
I mean, it's with the Rock is always cool. And then Wonder Woman 1984, which is the sequel to that. So that's going to be the third, the trilogy Wonder Woman movie. Those are the ones that are scheduled right now, plus the Batman, of course.
Yeah.
Which is the big one. But apparently, and this is kind of confusing, the Batman is not going to be in the continuity.
Well, yeah, because I think whatever the continuity this is, technically the Ben Affleck Batman is the Batman of this. So
they're just
we get alcoholic crossfitting Batman in this universe.
Confused.
Yeah, in a performance that would have been more befitting of Lex Luthor, considering how much he hated the alien, which, again, a missed opportunity. Superman is much better when you use Lex Luthor as a villain. Is much better used as an analog for a refugee, and this is where the storylines can be more compelling. As someone who tries, it's how you integrate it. You don't tell a story about Superman about being this god who doesn't know how to, relate to people. It's about treating him, trying to be a human and trying to be the best representation of what it means to be representative of Earth, regardless of where he's from. And, so we'll see if they can get that. But yeah,
do you think so? Dan, a question: do you think they do or they should do, I should say? Do you think they should do a sequel for Man of Steel? And that's for you as well, Ian. Should they do a sequel of Man of Steel, or should they basically do a reboot? Not a reboot, because they don't really need to do a reboot, but just a different thing. Recast and do a different movie with a different dude.
I say don't recast. I think Henry Cavill has been criminally underused. He's a very charismatic man, an actor, and he has been not given good material to work with. But I say just have him show up. Like have him
show up as a main character.
Don't do a new movie for him yet. Wait a while and have him show up in some of these if you need him to.
In some of the other movies with the other characters.
Yeah, either him or Brandon Routh. Bring back Brandon Routh. I think he was also criminally.
That's ancient history. You're not going to bring back Brandon Routh from like 1970.
Hey, he reprised his role as Superman on the TV shows. As the Christopher Reeve.
That was too long ago.
No, he did it this past year in the cross.
Okay, yes, but we're talking about like a $1 billion movie. Well, I don't know if they're ever going to make a $1 billion movie again, actually, with the pandemic.
Yeah, no, I think if you're going to do Superman, just either go with Cavill or Brandon Routh or whoever, and just have him show up. Particularly have him,
I would agree with Cavill. Brendan, I think that wouldn't make sense, but Henry Cavill, yeah, I think so. I like him. Maybe it's because I'm biased now, because he did The Witcher and he's so cool in The Witcher that now I'm like a fanboy. So maybe I'm a little bit biased.
I would say what I appreciate about him is that he clearly has charisma and understands all the stuff related. I watched the guy build his own PC over the past year because he's that much.
Yeah, I saw that too. That's why people like him so much. It's because
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I feel like he hasn't been given a chance to have good Superman material and I feel like he should be a good Superman. Now,
yeah, I think he would make a good Superman, and I think he does. But I definitely agree with you that the material has just sucked so far for him. I think all of the Superman movies that I have seen have been perfectly mediocre.
I'm gonna strongly disagree with that again, man. Today I'm
Superman
on
2, Christopher Reeve Superman 2.
Disagreeing band, because
I haven't. I don't
think Dan agrees either from the look of his face.
I think Superman 2 is pretty good. But I think other than that, though, actually I would agree.
Superman 1 is really good. What, you don't like Superman 1?
The reversing time on the planet is
by flying counterclockwise.
Yeah,
I haven't seen the movie, but I know about that one.
Now all the charm of that movie early on is great, actually. Between he pulls off the best Clark Kent, Christopher Reeve, of anybody. Like, honestly, that's one of the things that nobody seems to get right in live action Superman is how to pull off a good Clark Kent.
And people still think about him when they think about Superman.
They're doing better in the TV shows with him. Like the guy they got to be the new Superman in the Supergirl show, and now there's going to be a Superman show as well, is like, that's just perfect. Like, it's almost like sometimes these people are just stop doing comics and big tentpole stuff as movies and let them breathe as TV shows.
Yeah, I think Warner Brothers will slowly come into their own as they've begun to have success with the WB and their TV shows. Mm-hmm. Like, I watched a few seasons of Arrow and that was great.
Yeah.
But then it started getting like really repetitive and
you guys like
going
Arrow?
Downhill. I liked the first two seasons.
Arrow goes downhill.
No way.
Arrow comes together late better again.
I will say the first season is fantastic because it's hardcore, it's gritty. It's derivative. It just feels like it feels like Batman with a bow in terms of having a billionaire playboy in a corrupt city. Like that sucks, but like he's got that like gritty, like dirty moral code where he's just willing to be murder man for a while.
Yeah,
I think
second season I feel is really good too.
I think we have very different tastes in DC adaptations because I absolutely hate those TV
And the
shows.
Flash show I felt is Warner Brothers' most successful. CW's.
I've heard really good things about the Flash. I haven't watched any of it, but
it has
they
some.
spun that off from Arrow, right?
They spun that off, and they spun a lot of other shows off. There's a lot of DC.
Yeah, so I think it's like the fact that they've gotten like, you know,
There's
2,
like 5
3
or
good
6.
spin-offs in has shown that they're doing well in that space finally, and it shows that they know how to finally cast these roles.
And then on the streaming service, they have a show, Doom Patrol, which I never thought they'd ever pull off as a good live action, because that's a bizarre comic series, like really bizarre. And it is probably the best DC property right now. Like, it is fantastic.
Yeah, I heard it's pretty good.
If you get a chance to watch it, Ian, I would be very interested to hear your thoughts on it.
Dune Patrol, like a sand dune?
No, Doom Patrol.
Okay, Doom. Like,
But you know,
like it runs Doom.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
but people really like I feel that people really like the DC movies as well. I mean, at least they do pretty well because I mean, if you look at the movies, they've been pretty successful except for Justice League and Batman versus Superman, which are genuinely shitty movies.
Well, Batman and Superman are probably the two most famous comic book characters. That's just what it comes down to. I mean,
yeah, and even that one, it actually did well, sort of well, like in terms of
it's the first cinematic on-screen appearance of the two most popular comic book characters. It was going to do well no matter how bad that movie was.
Yeah,
it's a shame
and the
that
movie's
was
bad. Yeah,
Like,
Are we talking about Batman v Superman?
yeah,
Yeah, it sucked. I had a bet on that movie.
yeah,
I bet on Batman.
It sucked considerably.
yeah.
What was the bet?
I bet $100 that Batman would win, and I was right. I also bet on Alien versus Predator.
You should have gotten pretty good odds for Batman winning.
Now, and again, the animated series did that conflict better.
Oh, totally.
And there's the whole, it's literally called, there's a sequence of episodes in the Batman and Superman animated series they call World's Finest. And they do that conflict so much better because it's a conflict of, I'm a vigilante, I'm doing all I can to help. You're not doing enough, Superman. And Superman's saying you're going against the law. And they have a conflict of principle on how they approach things. But they come to respect each other. You know, it's not I want to kill this person because he's a murdering alien. Like,
yeah, I think the movie had a couple of really unforgivable sins, mostly in editing.
Yeah.
I haven't read the comic arc that Batman v Superman was based off of. But
It's
there's
based
that.
Well, I don't think there is one. I don't think
There is.
Well, that fight was based off of from the Dark Knight Returns.
Dark Knight Rises, yeah, for sure. Not Rises, Returns.
Yeah.
So there's that scene at the end of Batman having that hallucination or dream where like he's in the desert and it's like fucking Fallout New Vegas and he's trying to secure the last like bit of kryptonite, and
that's kind of a cool
got like
scene.
this military police force like tracking him down, and it's just a green light bulb in a suitcase, and then Batman gets Pulp Fictioned and he
That's
just
kind
turns
of a
into
cool
Murder
scene,
Man.
actually.
Right, it's a cool scene, but it makes no fucking sense in the movie.
It makes no sense. Yeah, I mean that's the problem.
And like it's because of
that's-
editing. And then afterwards there's that part where like the Flash comes back through like time travel, which I know the Flash can do, but like he's time traveling to like go back in time and warn Bruce about that because it's a premonition of an alternative future, I think. Like I asked my friend at, like afterwards when we saw the movie, like what the fuck was going on? He's like, oh, that was super cool. And it made sense to him because he read the comic, but I hadn't. And I was like, I feel like it was an entire scene that they just flushed down the toilet.
No, you see, it made sense to me, and I still thought it was nonsense. Like,
Okay.
it's like, I don't care if it made sense to someone who was expected, who can relate and understand what the Flash was trying to do there. It's still nonsense. Again, when you put when you're trying to smash too much in a movie. It's why Wonder Woman works so well as a movie, because it's a simple story. You know, if you want the big complex story, you have to put in the work. Right. And none of the work was done on any of these other movies. And even Suicide Squad, there was no work put into any of those. The best part about the movie, about the Suicide
Squad, I would say it's different though. I mean,
well, the best part about it is that
it's not. I mean, it's not overly complicated.
Well, the best part about the movie is the mini origins. Is those little mini.
I thought that was amazing. Amazing.
That was the best part about it. But then it's squandered because no work is put into the actual story that they're trying to tell. Like, you know, and they squandered amazing cast. I mean, you have Viola Davis as, you know, one of the great sort of bad, sort of good characters in DC Comics history. Like, Amanda Waller is such a great character and you had Viola Davis as her.
But I mean, honestly, I thought she was fine. Why didn't you like her? I mean, I thought she was fine.
Well, I'm saying the movie didn't use. I mean, Amanda Waller is.
But you have 2 hours, right? I mean, that's also something that, like a movie like the Suicide Squad, you're never going to be able to develop those characters. You know, you have like 10 characters.
Well, I mean, let me put it to you this way: Birds of Prey had a big cast of characters, and I felt like did a whole lot more.
It's a lot smaller, though. It's a lot smaller. I think they have 4 characters, and I thought that movie was much worse than Suicide Squad.
Oh man, I loved it. It was great.
No,
I thought it was actually considered much better than Suicide Squad, and it's for a lot of the reason women liked.
I mean,
audience.
I've read that. I mean, I've read comments about that movie. I haven't really seen any positive comments, but
have you watched the movie?
Yeah, I hate it, man. To me, that's by far the worst movie. No, actually, Batman.
That movie is actually considered better for a lot of the same reasons that people like Wonder Woman. People like it because
it's a feminist power trip. I mean, that's what that movie is, and it's fine when it works, but that movie is like so boring. You have to like work to stay awake. You know, I mean, it's different. Like Wonder Woman is a really well put together movie, and that one I thought it was, I mean, not so good. And it didn't do well, but
if you look at the reception for all the movies within the DC universe, that one, Birds of Prey, has one of the higher receptions.
Well, the movie bombed, but you can also.
I guess I would.
You can also say
I
it
would
was
say
the pandemic.
Well, Suicide Squad got a 40 on Metacritic, and Birds of Prey has a 60.
And Birds of Prey also probably was hurt by the fact that people didn't like Suicide Squad.
Yeah, that too.
That it was a sequel to that.
I think the movie was really bad, honestly. But you know, it's a matter of opinion. I really haven't seen a lot of people that like the movie. But you guys like the movie, you think?
Yeah. I can't ever look at Suicide Squad without seeing this meme that was going around at the time, where somebody had photoshopped Ted Cruz to look like Jared Leto's Joker.
Oh yeah,
and like.
Yeah, the Joker.
Every time someone brings up that movie, I've got to dig up that meme and have a good old laugh at Teddy Boy.
The Jared Leto interpretation of the Joker. I mean, even though he's a good actor, I mean, he didn't get it right.
No.
Yeah, he didn't get it right.
And he was horrible to work with, which makes it that much worse.
Yeah, I heard he was really bad. Like he was sending people like dead mice and stuff like that, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, all the things that like
used condoms.
Oh man, really?
Jared Leto, yeah.
Wow, what a
he was that.
Yeah, I don't know if he was like method acting for this role, but I can't imagine method acting for a 14-minute cameo.
Yeah,
because that's really what it was.
Yeah. Well, I think they cut a lot of them out because.
I think they cut a lot of it out. I heard that as well.
Again, that Suicide Squad movie is cut to all hell. Like it is copied and pasted over and over again.
I mean, I don't think he was actually terrible, but he definitely. I mean, also look, if we're gonna compare him, are we gonna compare him to Joaquin Phoenix and to Heath Ledger. I mean, the Joker.
Yeah,
at this
I would
point,
compare
it's
him to all of those because
it's like the
absolutely-
hardest. It's
Yeah.
the hardest job
Mark
in
Hamill.
comic book adaptations at this point.
Right,
Well, and
which
that's-
is why it was such a big deal at the time. Everyone he was on he was in an article saying like this Joker will give you nightmares and this Joker will break you. Like he was like so edgy and like insistent that this was gonna be like a fucking amazing Joker and that he was gonna knock this role and reinterpretation of the character out of the park.
Yeah, he was wrong.
Man, you know what would have been better if it had just been a goofy version. We haven't had a good live action goofy one in a while.
I want a live action Mark Hamill Joker.
Yeah. I've actually wondered if it's
I would
almost say, why don't we just try to give Mark Hamill a go at it?
Yeah, I would find that compelling. Bring in Mark Hamill's always cool, so I mean he can't really do that badly, So
well, and again, like it's just so funny. He falls back into the voice so easily. Like whenever anybody asks him to do it, he can just like fall in.
He can do it.
Mark Hamill shows up in the Flash show as a character called the Trickster, and he pretty much plays him up with that same voice. But it's interesting. It's an interesting turnaround because Mark Hamill years ago played the Trickster, and his interpretation of the Trickster got him the role as the Joker. And it's interesting how that has come full circle in that regard.
wow.
It's like DC knows how to do some of these things really well. I just wish they would, get out of their own way with these movies. They keep wanting to make this big event with their movies.
Well,
like Marvel, and I'm
Wonder
like,
Woman is an example of them not doing that, and I think they did learn from.
Well, I think they still interfered with it, according to Patty Jenkins. That's how we
but
got that big fight.
every studio interferes the shit out of these movies. I mean, look, this movie cost like $100 million to make, man. Like people get nervous when you have a budget that, and I think the new Wonder Woman was like 200 million, which is probably really bad for them because the pandemic means that now
they should have released this. They should have released this in 2019, like they originally thought they were going to, and then they were worried about releasing it near Star Wars.
I don't know if we're gonna get these movies anymore. These like $200 million budget movie anymore. I don't know if it's possible anymore. In the future, honestly, because they're probably not gonna make money anymore. Like when they're that expensive.
Yeah. Well, I'll be curious to see if they can.
Anyways, we've been doing this for a while, so we should probably end it. So, any final thoughts? What was the thing you liked the most and the thing you liked the least about the movie? Maybe you can end it that way.
No Man's Land is a scene that I think I can rewatch a million times.
Great scene.
Just the rise out and to be like, this is what I came here to do. It'll cause me to swell pretty much. I can almost get myself doing that now. Like it's just like that is the epitome of what I want in my Wonder Woman and what I want to see in a true hero is to be like there to save people,
True. Yeah, that's a great scene. And I don't know if you've seen. You watch pretty much all the movies, so I'm sure you watched 1917. When I was watching that scene this last time, it reminded me of that scene in 1917. When they're in the trenches and he has to run outside of the trench basically in order to get there in time. Didn't that remind you of that scene?
There's shades of that, yeah.
Except 1917 was a real depiction of the trench warfare.
Well, superhero movies are the wish fulfillment avenue of all of that. So.
Exactly. It's the fantasy,
What I have come to realize from this conversation, as much as I love the Wonder Woman movie and I want to see more of it, I like the concept of smaller DC movies that exist in a bubble, and don't have a this massive cinematic universe that needs to be upkept. because I've realized that some of my favorite Batman movies are like all of the animated features, like Assault on Arkham,
Yes.
like Batman Year One, like Killing Joke, all the these are like small budget movies that are all done by like their animation studios. And I would love to see a lot more of that with Wonder Woman. And I think between this and my upcoming experience with 1984, it's really given me a new appreciation for DC's IPs. And I just want to see more of it. I also want to see a Batman Beyond reboot in any capacity.
Oh man,
That would be cool.
please.
Yeah, I mean that's great, guys. Yeah, and I agree with both of you. I think those are some of the great things about the movie, and I also agree that it's kind of cooler when they focus on smaller, simpler stories. I think it works better. I agree with that, Ian. Like the Joker is an example of that. That was a pretty low key, small story, small movie. I think the budget was like 50 million or something like that. It was much smaller than your tentpole superhero movies, and it made almost $1 billion. So I think people like that.
Right. And I think there's just so many interesting properties that DC has that you can mine for this, and just don't make them have to be part of this universe. Like some of them can be contained with their own little ones. Like this is how the DC multiverse works. Go give us a Blue Beetle movie,
Right. I mean, I think like the niche fandoms that have had success in the Marvel universe shows that you can really resurrect that. And DC has plenty of niche fandoms that I think will, if they play their cards right and they find people that are excited and passionate about the products and the projects, they could easily have tons and tons of success with the IPs they have.
Yeah. Like I said, if you get the time, watch Doom Patrol. I'd love to talk to you about that. It's its own self-contained universe and show.
Yeah, man, I'll check it out.
And
maybe we'll do a Doom Patrol podcast at some point.
It's like that show just hits so many good notes.
Yeah, I really want to watch it, actually. That looks really good. So yeah, this is it for our podcast of Wonder Woman, and we'll do the second one, Wonder Woman 1984, pretty soon. So thanks for watching.
Thanks, man.
All right, and it's over. Thank you, guys. This was a good conversation. It was fun.
Yeah, dudes.
Yeah. What do you guys have going on tonight? Just going to bed, or?
I might hop on play some Phasmophobia with some guys.
Probably just gonna get back on my bullshit and play more Hades.
Yeah,
this game is just so good.
Hades.
It is so good. Like,
did you start that because Dan told you it was really good, or?
Yeah, I had like 3 recommendations in the course of 2 weeks to play the game,
and it's good.
And yeah, I got it off the Steam sale for pretty cheap, so I just went for it.
It's so good.
I'm also realizing from this Google search that Mark Hamill has 2 different Lego figures.
2 different what?
He has 2 different Lego figures. There's Lego Luke Skywalker and Lego Joker.
Right.
That's how you know you've made it.
He's a cool dude, man, Mark Hamill. And he's a guy that his career didn't really go that well, like after being the biggest superstar in the world for a little bit, like
his car accident hurt his physical appearance a little bit. He's got facial scars.
Oh, is that why he has those scars? Because he had a car accident?
Yeah, and they basically had to write that into Empire Strikes Back.
But you know what? I think he looks really cool.
He does, but I think like that hurt him in a bit.
You're probably
but
right.
Also, I think he's even said that he enjoys the voice acting roles he's gotten over the years because it allows him to choose scenery.
And he did get his redemption. That was also I was gonna say. But recently, he's sort of become like this folk hero of pop culture.
Yeah.
You know what I forgot about was the 1997 Batman and Robin movie with George Clooney.
Oh,
and Arnold. I had that on VHS,
Those are
And
the dark times. Those are
I
the
watched
dark
that movie
times
as a
of
kid.
Superheroes.
back when like you didn't have the luxury of being able to watch good movies and being able to jump onto a different streaming service.
Oh man, that was terrible though.
I
Those
had
the
that
ni-
movie and I swear I
late
watched that
90s,
so
man.
many times.
No, not even
Everybody
late 90s, the
chill.
90s. The
Yeah,
90s were
and Arnold
superheroes.
Schwarzenegger's got all these fucking puns. Why don't you cool off for a while?
I
It's
used
so
to beat
good.
you.
It is not good.
Oh man, it's like that's a long forgotten artifact of my childhood.
I like
George
Arnold
Clooney
Schwarzenegger.
will say that he will.
Very
George
good.
Clooney has said that he will personally reimburse anybody who wants a refund for that movie.
Seriously, I thought it was great.
Sure.
It was a. I know that it was a
You liked the movie?
125-minute movie, and it cost $125 million. So watching it is like watching $1 million a minute.
Yeah,
It was a bomb, man. That movie was a bomb.
But it's like I don't know. I think all the characters are cool. I had fun with it as a kid. I didn't know better. I didn't have like cinematic experience. Like there was the fucking sweet motorcycle scene.
That's true.
There's the
When
Turkish
it came
bath
out,
scene.
When it came out, it didn't look as bad as it looks today because we.
I
didn't
still
have-
think it looks cool. It's like got that like cheat like actual special effects like era of Hollywood where like they didn't have computers. They had to like do it with, you know, paint and gaffer tape.
yeah. Well, fellas, I'm gonna jump off.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll talk to you lads later.
Talk to you later. Let me know if you guys ever want to do some more Left 4 Dead too.
Yeah, that's we can do that, and we can do more podcasts. We got to figure out the Wonder Woman 1984. We can
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yep.
we'll do that one soon.
All right, gentlemen. I'll
Bye,
see you.
guys.
See ya.